All right, let's get into this, because there's a really strange situation unfolding in America's heartland. You've got fields that are just bursting at the seams, looking like they're headed for a record-breaking harvest. But at the exact same time, the farmers who grew that crop are facing a potential financial disaster. So, how on earth is that possible?
And that's really the big question we're tackling here. It's a bizarre paradox where having more of something, in this case grain, doesn't mean more money in the bank. In fact, it could actually mean the exact opposite.
To really get our heads around what's going on, here's how we'll break it down. First, we'll look at the tale of two harvests. Then, we'll get the view from out in the field and contrast that with the view from the financial markets. We'll see how that creates this incredible squeeze on farmers, and finally, we'll talk about a September wildcard that could, well, change everything.
At its heart, this whole story is really about two completely different worlds colliding. You've got the physical world, the dirt, the rain, the actual, tangible crops sitting out there. And then you have the financial world, the abstract realm of global markets that decides what that crop is actually worth.
So let's start on the ground, out in the fields, where honestly things look fantastic. Agronomists, the folks working side by side with farmers, are saying this is one of the best-looking crops they've seen in years, especially in the areas where harvest has already kicked off.
So yeah, from a purely physical standpoint, the crop is abundant. It looks amazing. But, and this is a big but, it's not safely in the bin yet. And some pretty serious threats are starting to pop up that could change the final numbers.
If you head down to the Deep South, the combines are rolling. Some farmers call them the judge because they deliver the final verdict on the crop. And right now, the judge is bringing in some incredible numbers. Fields hitting as high as 280 bushels per acre. I mean, that is just a phenomenal yield. But here's where the story gets complicated. Over in the eastern Corn Belt, it's gotten really dry, and that could shave the top end off their yields. In Iowa, a state some are now calling the Rust Belt, a disease called southern rust is spreading. And just to add another layer of trouble, the Mississippi River is so low it could make shipping all this grain way more difficult and expensive. This puts farmers in a totally impossible spot. For the crops that are mature and ready to go, they are desperate for dry weather so they can run the combines. But for their other fields, the later planted stuff, they desperately need rain to help that crop finish strong. It's the definition of a catch-22.
Okay, so while farmers are literally battling the weather and disease, the financial world is telling a completely different story. Despite all those real-world threats to the crop, the overall mood in the market has been overwhelmingly negative, or what traders call bearish.
Now, you might have seen a little price surge in late August and thought, hey, maybe things are turning around. But hold on. Analysts figure that 90, maybe even 95% of that rally had absolutely nothing to do with real demand for corn. It was all about a technical move in the financial markets.
And here's what that was. It's something called fund short covering. Basically, you have these huge investment funds that made massive bets that prices would go down. Before the long holiday weekend, they decided to get out of those bets, which forced them to buy contracts back. All that buying created a price spike that was sharp, but totally temporary and, artificial. It wasn't real.
So what does the real demand picture look like? Well, it is a tale of two very different crops. For corn, new export sales are looking great, almost at a record pace. But for soybeans, it's a disaster. Sales are incredibly weak, and the main reason is that the biggest buyer in the world, China, is basically missing in action.
And I want you to understand just how bad that soybean situation is. This is the second worst start to a selling season in the last 10 years. Yeah, some other countries are stepping up a little, but they simply cannot fill the gigantic hole in demand that China has left behind.
And this right here, this is where those two worlds we talked about, the huge physical harvest and the weak financial market, violently collide. And farmers are caught right in the middle of it.
Just look at these numbers. They tell the whole story. Back in 2022, a farmer could get about $6.50 for a bushel of corn. Today, they're looking at something closer to $4.20. That's a price drop of more than 30%. But at the same time, the cost of everything they need to grow it, fertilizer, seed, fuel, it hasn't budged. It's all still stubbornly high.
Analyst Matt Bennett just nailed it with this quote. It perfectly captures the frustration out there. The price of everything farmers have to buy has shot up, while the price of the one thing they have to sell has plummeted.
And this is not a new problem. For a lot of folks, this is going to be the fourth year in a row that they're having to burn through their savings, their cash reserves, just to pay the bills and get the next crop in the ground. It's a crisis that's compounding year after year, just draining the financial lifeblood out of these farm operations.
So with all this pressure building up, the entire industry is now laser-focused on one single, high-stakes moment, a September wildcard that could completely change the direction of this entire story.
Seriously, everyone in the ag world, from the farmer in the field to the trader in Chicago, is holding their breath for one specific date, Tuesday, September 12th. That's the day the USDA drops its next massive crop report.
So what makes this one report so important? Well, it's the first official government estimate that includes data from boots on the ground, from surveyors who are actually out in the fields in late August, taking physical samples after all that dryness and disease really started to take a toll. This is going to be our best snapshot yet of whether those threats really did damage this crop's huge potential.
Which leaves us with the ultimate cliffhanger. Will this report confirm everyone's fears of a record-breaking glut of grain, which would likely send prices tumbling even further, or will it reveal a hidden problem, showing that the crop isn't nearly as big as we thought, which could spark a huge rally? For America's farmers, literally everything is riding on that answer.